Please don't come inside." The words hang in the evening air between them like smoke. Sarah Winters stands in the doorway of her farmhouse, one hand gripping the frame so tight her knuckles have gone white, the other pressed against her chest like she's trying to hold her heart in place. The porch light casts shadows across her face, illuminating the fear and something else in her gray eyes. Something that looks like longing she's desperately trying to suppress. Cade Mercer stands 3 feet away on her weathered porch, hat in his hands, dust from the road still clinging to his boots. He's a big man, 6'3" of weathered muscle and hard-earned scars, with eyes the color of whiskey and a reputation that precedes him like thunder before a storm. People in town whisper about him. The drifter who took work at the Henderson Ranch. The cowboy with a past nobody knows and a temper some claim they've seen. The man women watch from a distance but never get close to. But right now, standing on Sarah's porch with sunset painting the Montana sky, behind him in shades of amber and rust, he looks nothing like the dangerous man the rumors describe. He looks patient, gentle, like he'd wait forever if that's what she needed. "I fixed your fence line," Cade says, his voice low and rough from years of not using it much. The posts on the eastern pasture were rotting through. "Your cattle were getting out. Spent the afternoon replacing them." Sarah knows this already. She watched him work from her kitchen window for 3 hours, unable to look away from the methodical way he moved, the careful attention he paid to work he wasn't being paid for, on land that wasn't his. She'd made lemonade twice, poured it out both times, unable to work up the courage to bring it to him. "I didn't ask you to do that," she says, and hates how her voice sounds, brittle, defensive, afraid. "I know," Cade replies. "You don't ask for much of anything, Sarah. Notice that about you." The use of her first name, said in that rough, gentle voice, makes something crack inside her chest. Nobody said her name like that in 3 years. Like it matters. Like she matters. "You need to go," Sarah says, but her hand hasn't left the doorframe. She hasn't stepped back, hasn't closed the door. Cade puts his hat back on, a gesture that feels like acceptance, but his eyes tell a different story. Why? Such a simple question, such an impossible answer. Sarah Winters became a widow at 31 years old when her husband, Marcus, drove his truck into a tree on an icy February night 4 miles from their home. The highway patrol said he died instantly, that he didn't suffer, that the black ice came out of nowhere. They said it like those facts would provide comfort, like knowing the mechanics of how your entire world ended would somehow make it hurt less. She'd loved Marcus since she was 17, married him at 23 in a small church, ceremony with wildflowers and promises of forever. They'd bought this farm together, 200 acres of Montana grassland, with dreams of horses and children and growing old on the porch swing. Marcus built with his own hands. They'd had 7 years. Not enough. Never enough. After the funeral, Sarah learned that grief doesn't come in neat stages. It comes in waves that drown you at random moments, in the smell of coffee brewing, in the empty side of the bed, in the silence of a house that used to hold laughter. She learned to survive it by building walls, by keeping people at a distance, by making sure she never, ever let anyone close enough to destroy her again. The town understood, gave her space, brought casseroles the first month, then slowly stopped visiting. Sarah preferred it that way. Alone was safer. Alone meant her heart stayed intact, protected behind walls of routine and solitude. Cade Mercer arrived in town 6 months ago, rolling in on a motorcycle with nothing but a duffel bag and a past he didn't discuss. Jack Henderson hired him for ranch work after watching him gentle a spooked horse in under 10 minutes, without breaking sweat or temper. The old rancher had a sense for men, and something in Cade told him this was someone you wanted on your side Not against you. The rumors started immediately. A man like Cade, quiet and self-contained and carrying the kind of danger you feel rather than see, became a magnet for speculation. Some said he was running from the law. Others claimed he'd killed a man in Texas. A few whispered about prison time. Though nobody had proof, Cade didn't defend himself or deny anything. Just did his work, kept to himself, and let people think what they wanted. But Jack Henderson saw something different. Saw the way Cade treated animals with patience. Saw him help the ranch cook carry groceries without being asked. Saw him fix equipment that wasn't his responsibility because it needed fixing. Jack recognized a man trying to outrun his demons by doing the next right thing, one day at a time. 3 weeks ago, Cade rode past Sarah's farm and noticed her struggling to load hay bales by herself. He stopped without asking permission, helped her finish, then left before she could thank him properly. The next week, he noticed her cattle in the road and spent 2 hours getting them back in and discovering the rotted fence posts. Today, he'd fixed them. And now he stood on her porch, asking why she was so afraid of letting him inside. After that first night, Cade kept coming back. Not intrusively, not demandingly, just showing up to fix things that needed fixing. A broken water pump, loose shingles on the barn roof, the tractor that wouldn't start. Sarah would watch from windows, equal parts frustrated and grateful, unable to send him away but unable to invite him in. They'd talk sometimes, short conversations while he washed his hands at her outdoor spigot. Small exchanges about weather and cattle and the mundane details of farm life, but underneath the ordinary words ran a current of something else, something neither of them acknowledged, but both felt humming in the air between them. "You don't have to keep doing this," Sarah said one afternoon, handing him a glass of water on the porch. She'd finally worked up the courage to bring him a drink, though she still didn't ask him inside. Cade took the glass, their fingers brushing for half a second. Such a small touch, such an enormous moment. "I know," he said, eyes meeting hers with an honesty that made her want to look away. "But I'm going to anyway." "Why?" Sarah asked, echoing his question from that first night. Cade was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the land spreading gold and green under the afternoon sun. "Because you're trying to hold this place together, by yourself, and it's too much for one person. Because you deserve help even if you won't ask for it. And because when I'm here, working on your land, I feel less like the man I'm trying not to be anymore." The confession was so raw, so honest, that Sarah felt her walls crack a little wider. "What man are you trying not to be?" "The kind who runs from everything that matters," Cade said quietly. "The kind who doesn't let himself want things because wanting leads to losing. The kind who learned young that caring about people just gives the world more ways to hurt you." Sarah understood that, understood it in her bones. They were the same, she realized. Both building walls, both hiding from the risk of loving, both lonely in ways that had nothing to do with being alone. After that day, their conversations grew longer. Cade would sit on the porch steps while Sarah rocked in Marcus's old chair, and they'd talk until the sun set and fireflies began their evening dance. He told her about growing up in foster care, about the rodeo circuit, about the mistakes he'd made and the man he was working to become. She told him about Marcus, about the farm, about grief that didn't follow any logical timeline, and slowly, so slowly neither could pinpoint when it happened, friendship became something more. Glances held a beat too long, accidental touches that lingered, silence that felt intimate rather than empty. The dangerous, terrifying awareness that they were falling toward, something neither was ready to catch. Sarah began to dread the sound of Cade's truck in her driveway, because it meant another day of fighting against what she felt. She'd catch herself watching for him, listening for his arrival, feeling disappointment on days he didn't come, and that terrified her. Because wanting someone meant giving them power to hurt you, meant opening yourself to loss all over again, meant risking the annihilation that came when someone you loved disappeared. "You're getting attached," she told herself sternly in the mirror one morning. "Stop it, send him away. Protect yourself." But when Cade knocked on her door that afternoon with a broken gate hinge in his hand and concern in his eyes, because he'd noticed it could trap livestock, Sarah couldn't send him away, couldn't do anything but step aside and let him work, while she pretended not to memorize the way he moved. Cade was fighting his own battle. He'd come to Montana to disappear, to leave behind the man he'd been and the violence that had defined him. He'd promised himself no attachments, no roots, no staying anywhere long enough to matter. But Sarah had gotten under his skin in ways he couldn't defend against. Her quiet strength, her hidden softness, the way she tried so hard to be strong when he could see how tired she was of carrying everything alone. He knew he should leave, should finish the season at Henderson's ranch, and drift to the next town before this became something he couldn't walk away from. But the thought of not seeing Sarah's face, not hearing her voice, not being the person who made sure she was safe and cared for, made his chest hurt in ways he'd spent years learning to avoid. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Cade arrived to find Sarah's truck dead and her in tears on the porch, overwhelmed by one more thing breaking down, one more problem she couldn't handle alone, one more reminder that she was barely holding her life together. He fixed the truck in an hour. Then he sat beside her on the porch steps, close enough she could feel his warmth, and said quietly, "Sarah, I need to tell you something." She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes, and he felt his carefully constructed walls crumbling. "I'm falling in love with you. Have been for weeks, and I know that's not fair to say. I know you're not ready. I know you're still grieving, and I'm just some drifter with a past you shouldn't trust. But I can't keep pretending I'm here to fix your fences. I'm here because being near you feels like home, and I haven't had one of those in 20 years. Sarah's breath caught. Every instinct screamed at her to reject this, to protect herself, to send him away before he could destroy her like losing Marcus had. But a different voice, quieter and braver, whispered that maybe destroying yourself slowly with loneliness was worse than risking pain for connection. "Don't," Sarah whispered, standing abruptly, backing away from Cade, like his confession was something dangerous she needed distance from. "Don't do this. Don't make me feel things I can't afford to feel." Cade stood too, but didn't move closer, just looked at her with those whiskey eyes, full of understanding and patience and something that looked like heartbreak. "Too late," he said softly. "We both already feel it. Have been feeling it. The only question is whether we're brave enough to admit it." "I'm not brave," Sarah said, and her voice cracked on the words. "I'm terrified. I loved my husband with everything I had, and when I lost him, it nearly killed me. I had to rebuild myself from nothing. I had to learn how to exist without him. I can't do that again. I can't love someone and risk losing them. I won't survive it a second time." "You're the bravest person I know," Cade said, his voice rough with emotion. "You wake up every day in a house full of memories and you choose to keep going. You run this farm alone. You carry grief that would crush most people, and you still find ways to be kind. That's not cowardice, Sarah. That's courage I can barely comprehend." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. "You don't understand. Loving you would mean tearing down every wall I built to protect myself. It would mean being vulnerable again. It would mean accepting that I could lose everything a second time." "I know," Cade said, and took one step closer. "Because I'm just as terrified. I spent my whole life not letting anyone matter because whoever mattered left or hurt me or disappeared. I learned to live like a ghost, passing through places without leaving marks or taking any with me. I was good at it, safe in it. And then I met you, and suddenly staying feels more important than running. He paused, and Sarah could see him struggling with his own walls, his own fear. I have to tell you something about my past, about why I came here. Sarah waited, heart pounding. Not sure if she wanted to hear this, but knowing she needed to. 5 years ago, I was in a bad place. Drinking too much, fighting too much, angry at the world for dealing me a shit hand. I got into a bar fight that went too far, put a man in the hospital. Spent 18 months in prison for aggravated assault. His voice was steady, but his eyes held shame and regret. I'm not proud of who I was. I've worked every day since to be better. But you deserve to know that the dangerous man people whisper about, he existed. He was real. And I'm terrified he's still inside me somewhere. Sarah absorbed this, and instead of fear, she felt understanding flood through her. They were both carrying the weight of their pasts, both trying to be better than their worst moments, both scared of the very thing they wanted most. Come inside, Sarah said quietly. Cade's eyes widened. What? Come inside, she repeated, and this time her voice was stronger. I've been keeping you on the porch for weeks because letting you in felt like admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. But I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of protecting myself from living. Come inside, Cade. Cade followed Sarah through the door he'd stood outside for so long. And crossing that threshold felt like crossing into a different life. The farmhouse was exactly as he'd imagined. Worn furniture holding memories. Photographs on the mantel of Sarah and Marcus, young and in love. The ghost of a man who'd been loved and lost living in every corner. Sarah saw him looking at the photos. I can't erase him, won't. He was part of my life, and I won't pretend he wasn't. I don't want you to, Cade said honestly. He made you who you are. Loving him taught you how to love. I'm not asking you to forget him, Sarah. I'm asking you to believe there's room for something new alongside what you had. They stood in the middle of her living room, close enough to touch but not touching, and Sarah felt something shift inside her. A loosening, a letting go, not of Marcus, but of the fear that had ruled her for 3 years. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to love someone again. How to be vulnerable. How to trust that I won't lose you too. Cade reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and cupped her face gently in his calloused hands. We do it scared. We do it knowing there are no guarantees. We do it because the alternative is living half a life, and you deserve more than that. We both do. When he kissed her, it was gentle and patient and felt like coming home after being lost for years. Sarah's hands found his shoulders, gripping tight, anchoring herself to this moment, to this man, to the terrifying, beautiful possibility of loving again. They didn't rush, didn't pretend grief magically disappeared because they'd found each other. Love after loss was complicated, messy, built on foundations of fear and hope tangled together. But they built it anyway, one day at a time, one honest conversation at a time, one moment of choosing courage over safety at a time. Cade moved into the farmhouse 6 months later, bringing his few possessions and his quiet, steady presence. He repaired the porch swing Marcus had built, not to replace him but to honor him, understanding that Sarah's capacity to love him was built on the love she'd had before. They worked the farm together, built new fences and new memories. On hard days when grief rose up unexpected, Cade held Sarah and let her cry. On nights when his past haunted him, Sarah reminded him of the good man he'd become. They learned each other's damage and loved through it rather than despite it. Here's what I learned from Sarah and Cade's story. Loving after loss is one of the bravest things a human can do. It's choosing vulnerability when you know exactly how much it can hurt. It's believing in possibility when experience has taught you about pain. But here's the truth they discovered. Hiding from love to protect yourself from loss means you're already living in the loss. You're already experiencing the absence of connection, the emptiness of isolation. The only way through grief is through it. And sometimes, on the other side, there's someone waiting who understands your scars because they carry their own. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever been afraid to love again, if you believe in second chances and the courage it takes to let someone in after loss, then I hope you'll share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let them know that walls built to protect us can also imprison us. That safety and living fully aren't the same thing. That the heart has more capacity than we give it credit for. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing that even broken people deserve love and second chances. Until the next story.